For this next clip, we're going to see CBR in action on the second and third bosses in Sameth Ghul. Now obviously, the second phase of this particular fight is a situation in which CBR is quite useless. But what we're going to see is DPS classes and healing classes working together in order to maximize the abilities of both. Pay close attention again to how both Flavius and Key use their continuous blood rage in order to DPS the boss down very effectively in the first phase of the battle, and then drop out of it when things become too difficult for healing. Now, in this fight, I am periodically swapping my rune stones out in order to make use of Do Not Fall to Lightning. The advantage of this is that some of the boss's more devastating lightning attacks get absorbed. The disadvantage is that I lose a substantial amount of fate and will every time I switch out my rune stones. Every time he knocks me back, he's interrupting my healing while also forcing the champions to run back to get into melee distance. Now both of my champions are going to drop out of CBR because there is no point in running it in this part of the fight. Even with dodging lightning, this portion of the fight is so difficult to heal that the minus 90% to incoming heals from CBR would make it impossible. Furthermore, you can't tank this boss. He's going to sit in the middle of that podium no matter what you do. However, between two champions, a DPS traded warden, and a hunter, the boss isn't going to last very long anyway. Now, if you pay attention to my power meter, you'll notice I'm burning more power during this fight than I did with CBR and some of the other earlier pulls with the bosses and the trash mobs. Part of the classes working together here is being willing to trade off a lot of extra DPS on the champion side with the understanding that the fight will be over before the healers run out of power. Now, we don't have a lore master or a burglar in this group. We have no convenient ways to refill our power with either lore master, share the power, or burglar blue conjunctions. And now for the hardest part, using champions in CBR during the fight with Gorathul. Now, an added difficulty for this fight is that we don't have any real crowd control, so our warden and our champion are going to have to detach themselves to go take care of lore masters whenever lore masters show up. Our hunter, Krelln, is going to be using Bard's Arrow to help with that, but the primary burden is going to be on melee classes to interrupt lore master. The good news is that between champions being in CBR and a warden, I won't be getting very much aggro at all because of the sheer amount of DPS even the champion AoEs are going to be putting out.
Gorathul, destroy them.
Now, because this particular battle starts with a high amount of dread, and because we've got to re-establish some buffs, Flavius is going to stay out of CBR for the first few moments of the fight until we can get everything set up properly. Shield Brother reapplied, Flavius is now in continuous blood rage. You'll notice that Flavius has burned all of his power already in the fight. One of the things we've discovered with using continuous blood rage is that champions can run out of power much faster than they normally would. Now we're about to get booted by a lore master, because no one in the Fellowship's paying attention to the status of those lore masters. We've gotten so invested in hitting Gorthul we forgot about it. We're going to pay the consequences for it here, but my Warden and Key are going to detach and start dealing with that problem now.
I will teach you the true meaning of terror.
Gorthul tried to do his booting attack, but it didn't work there. We've got the Lore Masters and Gorthul taken care of now. With Flavius beginning to run out of power, he drops out of CBR for a moment to give me a chance to catch up on heals. One of the things our experiments have kind of confirmed is that there's no point in keeping the champion in continuous blood rage when he runs out of power. That just turns him into a walking death trap. Now he's back in it again with some power, and with healing somewhat caught up. Gorthul is dropping quick, too, and we still have managed to preserve the hard mode by this point. Flavius is going to go jumping back into CBR at this point. Pulsing CBR like this helps everyone out. He was also in glory for a few moments back there in order to help grab the aggro. Unfortunately, that fear came at the horrible time, and it's right when I needed to get some critical heals off. The battle's going to go downhill from here. Fortunately, Dagran got off Oathbreaker's shame before he died, and realizing that most of my fellowship is now dead and that we only have a few moments, I use Scribe Spark, the only skill I can use at this level of attunement, to finally kill off Gorthul. We've won the fight, and not only is Gorthul dead, we've managed to preserve hard mode at the cost of most of the Fellowship's lives. But notice how fast that fight went. Gorthul didn't last very long at all. Now will come the moment of truth. We're going to loot the chest and see if we have a symbol of Celebrimbor dropped. And we get nothing. Not what we were looking for at all. And as I do the crying emote, because we didn't get what we were looking for, we're going to close this off with a few last-minute remarks. Running around in SG with champions in CBR is not about just trying to lower the time it takes to run the instance, although shortening the kill time on some of the bosses is an added benefit. It's about trying to utilize our classes in new and interesting ways. When we realized how efficient Runekeepers are at single target heals compared to Minstrels who are better at group heals in general, a whole new gaming world was opened up where strategies are not built upon simple formulas like tank, DPS, heals, and buffs. If Turbine has given all of the character classes in Lord of the Rings Online such flexibility with the trait system, we might as well take advantage of it and do new and interesting things. And I hope that this podcast has illuminated that for some of my fellow players. On Brandywine.